Hi everybody, Dr. Suneel Dhand, internal medicine physician. Welcome to another video. One disease which is absolutely exploding right now is inflammatory bowel disease. Actually, lots of diseases are exploding right now, but that's a disease I want to focus on in this particular video. Now, the two main diseases that come under the umbrella of inflammatory bowel disease are Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. And dare I say that some people watching right now may unfortunately suffer from one of these conditions, or if you don't suffer from one of these conditions, you probably know somebody that does. You have somebody in your life who suffers from one of these conditions. And they can cause people to get very sick indeed, inflammation of the gut. It's very sad when people suffer constant flare-ups and their lives are completely ruined a lot of the time. Now, unfortunately, we've got it all wrong when it comes to inflammatory bowel disease. Take a look at this graph. Now, you would think you would look at that graph and see the explosion in inflammatory bowel disease and say, hold on a minute, something's wrong within the environment. But surprise, surprise, the medical establishment, many segments of it, have it completely wrong, and some people high up in medicine think that something genetic is going on. Yeah, right, like our genetics have suddenly changed over the last 50 to 60 years. It is very obvious what is causing this dramatic rise. It is a fact that our guts are becoming inflamed because of something changing in our environment, namely the toxic pro-inflammatory foods that we are putting into ourselves, or millions of people are putting into themselves every single day. And of course, this is a bonanza for the medical establishment. They make so much money out of this, putting people on biologics like Humira, setting people up for scopes every few months, referrals to other specialists like surgeons, etc. Now, I'm not saying that all gastroenterologists who start this whole process are bad or that they're incompetent. I actually work with some good gastroenterologists, but the overwhelming philosophy, as with most things within medicine in the United States right now, is let's focus on expensive cures and treatments. Let's never address the root causes. Oh, you've got some inflammation in your bowel. Ka-ching! Let's put you on biologics. Oh, ka-ching! Let's do another scope on you. Ka-ching! Let's refer you to another surgeon. That's a sorry state of affairs. Now take a step back for a second. Is it not obvious that if you have inflammation of the gut, remember both Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis are inflammatory disorders, something goes wrong immunogenically, the immune system attacks your own body, they are autoimmune disorders of inflammation. What is triggering it? Something is obviously triggering it. The unique triggering factor may be different in different individuals, but it is so sad that within the medical establishment there is zero focus on the causative food agents. In fact, if you go to sources like UpToDate, that's a source of information that most doctors use when they're working during the day and they want the most up-to-date information. If you go there and look at what dietary factors could be involved in inflammatory bowel disease and what could help settle the symptoms down, the advice is basically terrible. There's no understanding of nutritional science and what causes inflammation. And forget that for a moment. Even within the hospital, I've worked in hospitals for a few years. I would say in every hospital I've worked in, I have seen patients come in with inflammatory disease flares. And as they're getting better, what do we do? What do we give them in the hospital? Pro-inflammatory foods. I see muffins, processed muffins, white bread, sodas on their food trays. It's utterly ludicrous. What clownery, what buffoonery are we talking about here? You have inflammation of the gut. You have an active inflammatory process going on. And at the same time, you are giving biologics to settle down the inflammation. You are pumping the gut full of pro-inflammatory food. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, apart from looking at it from the perspective of ka-ching, ka-ching, let's keep the disease going so that we can make more and more money. Now, I'm not saying that that is the philosophy of every single specialist gastroenterologist out there, but it is the way the system works. It's set up to keep people sick and keep people recurrent customers of Big Pharma. It's a terrible, terrible situation. The answer is not to search for more biologics, the answer is get to a root cause. So what would be my advice then when it comes to inflammatory bowel disease? Now, I've worked with a lot of patients, I've coached a lot of patients on this, and it's important to stress that there's never a one-size-fits-all approach. There can often be a lot of trial and error involved, and every patient is unique, and it goes without saying Before instituting any major changes in your life, obviously speak to somebody who knows you. But the broad principle is, Dr. Dhand's principle, is a detoxifying anti-inflammatory diet. Eating real food that helps reduce inflammation and helps to restore your gut microbiome, which is another huge topic that unfortunately the majority of physicians don't even know about. But there are trillions of bacteria residing in your gut. I could talk for a long time about the gut microbiome, but essentially in many disorders of the gut, the microbiome, your natural microbiome, gets disrupted, and that is what causes disease. And the goal should be, through a healthy diet, restoring a healthy gut microbiome, those trillions of organisms within your gut. We'll talk about that another time. So what are some more specifics then as to an anti-inflammatory diet? Well, the very first thing you should do is cut back dramatically, ideally send to zero, the ultra-processed foods in your diet. And I appreciate that this is difficult to do in the United States because we have a system, we have an establishment that sets us up to consume toxic, pro-inflammatory, ultra-processed foods that come in packages and packets. Look at the packet. If it contains 2 or more ingredients, ideally don't eat it, especially if it contains ingredients that you've never heard of before. So dramatically cut down on ultra-processed foods. Everybody, again, is unique. For instance, some people are tolerant to dairy, other people are not tolerant of dairy. So we could get into more specifics another time about individual food groups. But as well as ultra-processed foods, I would like you to remember to dramatically cut down on pro-inflammatory sugars. And again, within our corrupted establishment, we have food corporations that make trillions of dollars and they hide sugar in foods. It often goes by different names. But you want to completely cut back on sugar intake. I'm not saying send it to zero, but cut back dramatically. Most people out there eat way too much sugar. Also cut back on other processed items like processed seed oils, other preservatives, additives. Be as real as possible. Eat what your grandparents and great-grandparents used to eat when there was no inflammatory bowel disease, or hardly any at all. Now, other specifics we can also get into, like spacing of meals, intermittent fasting, etc. Different strategies that work for different people to reduce inflammation. But the broad philosophy is the same. Now, can we call it a complete cure? Now, some people have been cured of inflammatory bowel disease by making dietary changes, but at least if you don't get cured, hopefully these changes will help to settle down the inflammation and reduce the frequent flare-ups. And of course, the reality is that much of what I just told you would apply to many physical and mental disorders. Yes, I said mental disorders as well. It is absolutely crucial to do everything possible to reduce inflammatory food intake. I spend a lot of time coaching people on this particular aspect of their lives. Remember, every single cell in your body, every single thought that you have is powered by what you take in. So junk and inflammation in, junk and inflammation out. Keep that in mind. Once you institute these changes and hopefully feel much better, you will never want to go back. Thanks everyone for listening. Let me know your thoughts down below. Check out my online course and my Uncensored platform. Those links are down below. Remember, huge swathes of the medical establishment are completely and utterly corrupt. And one of the best things you can do for your health and your family's health is to take charge of your own health. Make the right decisions every single day so you stand the best possible chance of staying away from mainstream medicine and doctors. Hit the like button if you like this video and the bell button for more similar videos in the future. Have an amazing weekend, everyone, and we will talk again very soon.